Okay, let's dive right into this explainer on the Rich Dad Mindset, a guide to financial freedom. Today, we're going to set the stage for a massive paradigm shift in exactly how we view wealth.
It's a pretty frustrating reality we see all the time. Why do so many highly educated people completely struggle financially? I mean, they do everything right? They get the good grades, they land a secure job, they work incredibly hard, and yet they're still living paycheck to paycheck. So today, we're going to unpack exactly why that traditional 9-to-5 grind is basically a trap, and way more importantly, how we can actually break out of it.
And that brings us to the core philosophy driving this entire mindset. The rich don't work for money. They make money work for them. Think about it. Most folks are out there working strictly out of this underlying fear of being poor. But if we're talking about true financial freedom, well, that requires flipping that dynamic entirely upside down.
Section 1. Two Dads, Two Mindsets.
Our source material kicks off with author Robert Kiyosaki's ultimate case study, his two father figures. On one side, you have the poor dad, his highly educated biological father, whose advice was, the standard script: go to school, get a secure job, save your pennies. But on the other side, there's the rich dad. This was a mentor who never even finished college but ended up incredibly wealthy. His radically different advice? Learn how money actually works, buy assets, and build businesses.
Which leads us to Section 2, escaping the rat race. See, wealth is fundamentally a mindset. The source calls this inescapable trap the rat race, and it's basically this relentless 6-step hamster wheel. You get a job, you get a salary, you pay your bills, you do more work, you get more bills, and you repeat. This whole labyrinth is driven entirely by two emotions, fear and greed. Fear keeps you clocking in, and greed, the desire for that bigger TV or a nicer car, well, that just eats up your paycheck instantly.
Moving on to Section 3. Assets versus liabilities.
Now, schools are great at teaching us how to earn money, but they rarely teach us how to actually manage it. So first things first, we've got to redefine what an asset is. And it's very simple. An asset puts money into your pocket, period. We're talking rental properties, dividend stocks, or businesses that generate positive cash flow. The bottom line here? Assets make you richer.
On the flip side, a liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. Think of it like a financial black hole. Things like car loans, credit card debt, consumer loans, they drain your resources and they actively make you poorer. I know, it sounds super simple, right? But this definition leads to a massive clash with conventional wisdom.
Because here comes the really controversial question. Is your big house an asset? Now, most people, and honestly most traditional accountants, would immediately say, well, yeah, absolutely. But the rich dad mindset forces you to look at your cash flow, not just the market value of the property.
According to the source material, if your house requires a mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance without actually generating monthly income, well, it is a liability. Why? Because it's literally taking money out of your pocket every single month. This strategic, kind of brutal simplification of accounting rules is designed to wake you up. Basically, if it isn't putting cash in your hand, it isn't an asset.
And it's fascinating to see how the cash flow totally diverges here depending on your mindset. For the poor, their income goes straight to expenses just to survive. The middle class, they route their income into liabilities, like, say, a fancy car loan, which then generate even more expenses down the road. But the rich do it differently. Their income buys assets. The rich keep buying assets that make them more money, while everyone else keeps buying liabilities, totally mistaking them for assets.
Section 4. Inventing and building wealth.
So how do you actually get started? Well, you have to learn to mind your own business. And there's a really important distinction here between your profession and your business. If you're an employee, let's say a doctor or an engineer, you're spending your entire career growing someone else's business. Your business, in this context, is your asset column. The idea isn't to just up and quit your day job tomorrow, but to deliberately build your assets on the side until they can entirely sustain you. Because the wealthy literally invent money through their ideas. Imagine, for instance, a distressed house worth $100,000 that's being sold for $60,000. Most folks would just ignore it. But a trained investor spots it, buys it, renovates it, and flips it for $110,000. The takeaway is that money isn't just created by working harder, it's created by having the financial intelligence to see the opportunities that everyone else walks right past.
All right, Section 5, Overcoming Financial Obstacles.
So if the formula is that simple, what's stopping everybody? The text identifies 5 major roadblocks. First up, the fear of losing money.
Second, cynicism, assuming every opportunity out there is just a scam. Third is laziness, which actually often disguises itself as being too busy. Fourth, the monsters of bad habits, like consistently spending your cash before you save. And finally, arrogance, that lingering belief that you already know everything, which instantly kills your ability to learn anything new.
Let's jump to Section 6, Starting Your Wealth Journey. Okay, so how do we turn all of this into actionable steps? The central mantra of the source is work to learn, don't work for money. Most people prioritize a steady paycheck over their own personal growth, but the advice here is the exact opposite. You should actively seek out work that teaches you new skills, even if it doesn't pay the most right out of the gate. Long-term wealth is created by knowledge.
And what are those essential skills you need? We're talking sales, marketing, accounting, leadership, and negotiation. Take a highly skilled engineer as an example. As an employee, his income is completely capped. But if that same engineer takes the time to learn sales and marketing, he can launch a company, hire a team, and build immense wealth. You absolutely must combine your technical ability with financial intelligence.
Now, a huge part of that intelligence is understanding the rules of the game. Historically speaking, the source explains that taxes created two very different rulebooks. Look at how it works. Employees earn their money, they pay taxes immediately, and then they have to live on whatever's left over. Business owners, however, operate in a legally different structure. They earn, they spend on legitimate business expenses first, and they only pay tax on the remaining profit. Learning how corporate structures can legally reduce tax burdens is framed as a massive advantage.
Now, to be completely objective here, we definitely need to look at some of the valid criticisms of this philosophy. Critics often point out that some of the book's stories are pretty hard to actually verify. Also, that hardline definition of an asset we talked about, it intentionally oversimplifies actual real-world accounting rules. Furthermore, the heavy reliance on real estate might not match up with everyone's personal risk tolerance, and the text itself definitely lacks specific step-by-step investment instructions.
But despite those criticisms, the core principles remain incredibly powerful. So what are the key takeaways you can actually implement today? Buy income-producing assets first. Control your spending to avoid lifestyle inflation. Treat your financial education as a lifelong process, and build multiple income streams so you are never entirely reliant on a single paycheck. Which leaves us with the ultimate question, the one you really have to ask yourself today. Are you working for your money, or is your money working for you? Take a hard look at how your cash flows right now and think about what assets you can start building tomorrow. Thanks for checking out this explainer with me.